writing, and secretarial skills. Now, consider that you've just taken the pre-selection test, you've completed all the tests, and you're eagerly awaiting for your score. This is a very important question, obviously. Two important concepts that you need to be aware of when it comes to scoring in EPSO competitions. One is the pass mark, and the other one is what is referred to as best X candidates, and I will discuss both of them on the next slide. The pass mark is basically the minimum score or minimum mark that you need to achieve in order to be considered for the next phase of the exam. And as you can see from this little table here, for each of these tests in the pre-selection phase, the pass mark is always 50%. So, for example, for the organizing and prioritizing test, you can achieve a maximum of 20 points, and in this case, the pass mark will be 10 points. A very important thing to notice here is that all of the tests are scored individually, with the exception of abstract reasoning and numerical reasoning. Why is this important? Now imagine that you have a weakness and a strength. Your weakness is abstract reasoning and your strength is numerical reasoning. You're very good at that. If this is your situation, then this is good news for you, because if you perform poorly in abstract reasoning, you can make up for it in numerical reasoning and still reach the combined pass mark of 10 points. So this is something to take advantage of if you're in such a situation. Now, let's imagine that in the 2010 EPSO AST1 competition, 4,000 candidates achieved the pass mark. And you know that there are 400 positions available, but EPSO always invites a lot more people to the assessment center than the actual number of positions they would like to fill. So let's say that, which is usually the case, that at least 1,200 candidates will be invited to the assessment center. The concept of best X candidates means that from those who achieved or reached the pass mark, 1,200 candidates, that's 1,200 candidates, will be selected who have the highest score. So these are the two requirements that you need to fulfill in order to proceed to the next step. Now, we've talked a lot about the next step, which is the assessment center. So just very quickly, let's see what that means. An assessment center, you should think of it as an actual physical place. It's a place that you go to in Brussels, probably, and you need to take part in various exercises, all designed to measure your different competencies that are required to perform well at your potential job. One of these is a structured interview, which is not like a job interview. It's really a series of questions that ask you to recount your previous experiences. For example, tell us about a time when you were a good team player, or when you handled stress efficiently. And the reason it's called structured is because very similar questions are asked from all candidates in very similar order. Another typical exercise that you will face in an EPSO Assistant Assessment Center is a so-called in-tray or e-tray exercise. Such an exercise is basically a simulation of your actual work, potential job, where you receive emails, potentially documents as well, and you need to make decisions based on the information in the emails. For example, when to schedule people in a diary, or what to do with a particular email. If you're going for an AST1 competition, then you will also have a word processing task, which is designed to measure whether you can work comfortably and efficiently in Microsoft Word, format documents, proofread them, and so on and so on. And you also have a drafting or case study exercise. In case you're going for an AST1 competition, this will probably be the drafting of a short document, like the minutes of meeting I mentioned earlier. If you're going for an AST3 competition, it could be a longer, more complex document or a case study. A case study is a exercise where you again get a lot of information in a folder or a docket, and you need to write a short essay or short document based on the information and the instructions given. So let's say that you have passed the assessment center as well, which I am sure that many of you will. If you've succeeded there as well, then you will be placed on what is known as a reserve list. A reserve list is, and I would like to ask you to remember back when I said that in the AST1 competition there are 414 positions available. 414 positions actually means 414 places on the reserve list. Now, what is a reserve list? A reserve list is really a list of people, and when an EU institution, for example, the Directorate General for the Internal Market of the European Commission, needs a new employee, a new colleague. For example, they would like to fill a vacancy left by someone who went on maternity leave, and they need a new financial assistant. Then where they will look at the most current or up-to-date reserve list and select one of the people on that list. Another important feature of a reserve list is that it has a validity. So once you are placed on the reserve list, you usually have 1 year to be recruited to one of the EU institutions. If the 1 year passes, then you might need to take part in another competition as well, but this almost never happens. 1 year is usually enough to be recruited, because EPSO knows how many new colleagues they will need in the next year. And the last step is the actual job interview. And again, if you remember back to what we talked about, the recruitment targets, the various EU institutions where you can be recruited to, it's important to point out that this is not something that you can choose or select, but one day you might get a call from the Secretariat of the European Parliament asking you to come in for a job interview to the translation department of the Parliament, and you go in there. It's a classical job interview. They ask questions from you. You can ask questions about the job, and if both of you are satisfied, then you can sign a contract and you can start next Monday. So this was the last step in this process. And again, I would like to emphasize that EPSO did a lot to make the competition more based on real-life useful skills and competences. For example, they eliminated EU knowledge from the requirements. You don't need to have a lexicon in your head recounting all the different dates and times of when something happened in the EU, which is a very good thing. And they also significantly shortened the process from applying to a competition and being recruited. Now it can happen in as little as 9 to 10 months.